The time to build is upon us.
With great power comes great responsibility.
You know the greatest danger facing us is ourselves, an irrational fear of the unknown.
Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
This is the Superhuman Academy podcast.
All right, Daniel, I am your student for the next 44 minutes. I'm open. I'm interested. What do you want me to know?
No one's ever opened with that. So I appreciate your curiosity and openness. I think that's what I appreciate about you. We've spoken a bit before today, and I've just appreciated what words come to mind. Yeah, your curiosity, your depth to feel underneath the surface, which is a rare trait. And I consider you superhuman, and the people that listen to this podcast, I appreciate. Just want to be superhuman. And we have a jaded world of people that don't give a crap. And so I appreciate you for giving a crap, and your audience who gives a crap and wants to be the change they want to be in the world. So first, I don't know what I want, but I'm grateful to be here to share some things with your audience to make them more superhuman, and make them more superhuman, hopefully faster. That's what I'm here to do, and help with the superhumanness of the planet.
Thank you for showing up as you and all you bring to the table. I am giving lots of craps. Let's do this.
Oh, what'd you say? Oh, was that a question? Let's do
No, just
Was
what
it
do you
let's
want me to
do this or let's do this?
Let's do this.
All right. I think I always just like to, there's so much I want to share with you and anyone who hears this podcast. And I always think it's valuable, to tell how I ended up here in my story so that people can understand where this information comes from. So I'd like to kind of share my story and the key discoveries that I made that just make it possible to just be free of the things that hold us back permanently and quickly instead of a lifetime of managing it. Is that okay if I just tell how I ended up
for
here?
it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I know you're looking at me and you're just thinking, my God, that guy's never had any problems ever. He just was hatched from eggs at Roswell, New Mexico without any problems. Oh, that's not true. Even the clown cries. I didn't just have issues. I was all through my 30s and 40s. I just struggled with a lot of the things that, people struggle with anxiety, self-doubt, procrastination, low self-esteem, and it was affecting my ability to really just be superhuman. And, I went searching for help. I went to therapists and coaches and retreats, and I read the books, and I went to the gurus, and I did the ayahuasca, and I did a lot. And 10 years of seeking and searching, and after 10 years, I just sort of saw I was still doing all the things that held me back. It was better. I had insights. I had tools to manage it, but it just wasn't gone. And it sucked. It was heartbreaking. I just felt that there was this better superhuman version of me that I got glimpses of, but I couldn't be it consistent. And I felt shame. I felt guilt. I felt trapped. And I just felt like maybe I had to settle, and I was losing hope. And then I was at a particularly low point sitting on a beach in Mexico, and I just was pissed. I kind of looked up to Source, God, whoever's up there, and I just said, what do you want from me? I know this is a test, but what's the test? What do you want from me? And I was just being rhetorically angry, but I got an answer, and I'll tell you kind of what Source told me. But first, can you relate to just the idea of spending years, decades sort of seeking and learning, but stuff that holds you back is still showing up? Or do you know people like that?
Certainly know people like that. I would say that for me, the clearest line between what you're talking about and my experience would probably be what eventually landed me with Superhuman Academy and this company, which was my experience in college, trying all of the things to pass exams and then showing up and having everything that I had studied disappear from my mind and having the time suddenly going off and having like 3 questions answered out of a 40-question test. So that not exactly what you're talking about, but I think in the same universe.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, I mean, I know a lot of people just spend decades working on themselves and they improve, but the anxiety, the doubt, procrastination, whatever it is, it's just not, they're not free of it. And I know that it's heartbreaking when you know there's a better version of you in there and it can't come out. So there I am, sitting on this beach in Mexico, and I ask kind of source, like, what do you want from me? And I got this download, which referred to something that happened to me when I was younger. When I was 10, my dad, who was a physicist, said something to me that's kind of intense to tell a 10-year-old, but basically he told me, he said, Daniel, anybody can have a theory or a concept or an idea, but you don't know who knows what they're talking about. You don't know who to trust. And he said, it's the person that gets results that you should listen to and trust. And he said, results matters. And this idea of results just got embedded in my little 10-year-old brain. And I liked the idea of results, man. Yeah, it's all about results. So I go to engineering school to learn how to look at complex problems and take concepts, and then through engineering, testing, and prototyping, build things that work and get results. And I just saw that the personal development, self-help, spirituality, psychological industry wasn't great at getting results. They were good at concepts, but not solutions. And I was an engineer. I knew how to get solutions. So sort of just out of desperation, I started a research company to see if it would be possible to use engineering to approach human potential through engineering and see if we could reverse engineer a way for people to be free of what holds them back quickly and permanently and with a high success rate. And it was not easy. It was 8 years. It was work. It was just grueling. 8 years of testing, prototyping, working with 3,000 people, a ton of money, $1 million in R&D, and I was one of the first people to feel the benefits of the system we were developing. And I woke up one morning and I just felt calm, very deeply calm. And I thought it would be temporary. I didn't think it would stick because it never sticks. But 1 week goes by, 2 weeks goes by, a month goes by, and it's just been basically permanent calm, and the procrastination gone, the anxiety gone, it's just gone. And so we took that breakthrough in me, and then we spent another several years to systematize it so that in 6 weeks, we have a online program with a 90% success rate, such that if a person wants to be free of something, they can be free of it. Because when you're free of it, whatever it is, it just unlocks you to be superhuman. And so, yeah, what are your thoughts on, do you think it's true that this industry on average isn't great at getting people fast solutions, and that's kind of what people want? Or what do you
mean
think
like
about
self-help type of industry? Yeah.
Yeah.
Personal development, I guess, broadly speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been my experience, especially with um, like mindset coaching. My experience with that branch of personal development has been very lackluster and often counterproductive. And yeah, a lot of what you're talking about, I've seen. Did I ever tell you that I'm an engineer as well? Like that's my background.
No.
Oh yeah, yeah. So we share some of that. So yeah, I relate to that. And it's really funny you mentioned your dad was a physicist and he talked about results. My dad is a software developer and he had his own company, still does for decades. It's called Net Results. And so we have some like crossover histories there. It's really interesting. But yeah, I had a similar experience of coming into the personal development world and just seeing a lot, like what you said, concepts, a lot of concept, theories, ideas, um, words, and word choices, but not as much legitimate long-term sustainable transformation.
Well said. That you said it way better than I could. And well, the fact that we're both engineers, so people sometimes say, "Well, you're an engineer. What are you doing helping people with anxiety or that's feelings. You're an engineer." And the reason I think engineers, yourself included, are an important piece of this is because concepts, this industry primarily teaches concepts, mindset, trauma, ego, belief systems. These are ways to conceptually understand why we struggle and how to be better and more superhuman. And they're valuable, but they're concepts. And concepts alone don't get you a result and a solution. For instance, for centuries, they understood the basics of how to fly. You have a wing, and they knew Bernoulli's principle, but you can't fly with Bernoulli's principle. What did it take to fly? Well, you had the Wright brothers, who were basically bicycle engineers who engineered and took the concepts and turned it into a repeatable, systematic, focused application. And so people are spending years and thousands of dollars learning concepts that are valuable, but concepts aren't what gets you results. If you want to fly from New York to LA and someone says, "Hey, I'll teach you about how an airplane wing works." That's great, but it doesn't get you to LA. And so it's people, engineers and inventors, who I think take concepts and turn it into results. And the thing is, most people in the improvement industrial complex, this multi-billion-dollar industry, they're teachers and sharers, but they're not innovators and engineers. And so I'm inviting all the engineers out there, some of them, instead of trying to make a better battery or something in physical technology, come join myself and Collin to use your engineering to get people better results so we can have a happier world. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. And I would say that what I've experienced is a lot of people who have achieved legitimate transformation and then are attempting to pass it on to others, like you described the gurus and coaches. They really have achieved something and in their personal life, and they really want to pass it on to other people. And they do their best to articulate what it is that they've done and what they've achieved. But a lot of people have a lot of difficulty with breaking it down to behavioral processes of, no, here's the specific thing that you can do, that you can test right here, right now. You can test it. You don't have to trust me. You don't have to believe in a concept. You don't have to whatever. You can just do it and then see what happens. And the ability to measure that.
Exactly. Well said. The way I look at it is there's a ton of well-intentioned teachers, coaches out there, and what they teach is the what. Like, what would be better, why things aren't working, what isn't working, and what would be better, the what. But what they don't teach usually is the simple step-by-step how. How do you actually pull this off in a way that's simple and doable? That's what we spent 8 years engineering and figuring out. And I want to kind of share the key discoveries that my company made that make being free of what holds you back, whether it's anxiety or procrastination or self-doubt. And I want them to kind of understand the engineering framework of the discoveries we made that make it relatively simple and easy to be free of what holds them back, instead of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and years just managing it. How does that
Yeah. What
sound?
did you learn? Sounds good.
Well, first, what I'm going to be sharing with you, hopefully, will make sense, and hopefully will be simple. Do you like simple?
Usually. I mean, I like
Usually.
complicated too, but simple's nice.
All right. What I'm going to be sharing will hopefully make sense and be simple. And, you know, but there's a lot of people out there claiming to have sort of ways to be more superhuman and to be free of things. And so, your audience might hear this and think like, oh, it makes sense, but does it work? Because there's a lot of stuff out there that sound good, but doesn't work that well. So I'm going to share the discoveries we made. It'll make sense. Hopefully it'll create some little aha moments. But the only way to know if this will work is to really try it for yourself. So at the very end, I'm going to send your audience to a free link to try one of our techniques for themselves so that they can really feel a result, to see it actually work. My dad said results matter, so we like to give people results
Great.
instead of just talk. Sound good?
Sounds good.
So the first thing we did when we approached trying to reverse engineer a solution was to simplify things. We said, like, this is way too complicated. There's so many ways to approach consciousness. Is it this? Is it that? Do I do this? How long do I do? It's just not clear, I believe. There's thousands of books and thousands of teachers. It's confusing. And in engineering and science, usually, if you can make it simple, usually you understand things at a higher level. Newton took all of motion on planet Earth and got it down to 3 laws. It's impressive. So if we can simplify things, we have a much better shot at a solution. So we made 2 key insights that allowed us to just dramatically simplify why people struggle and how to get them a solution. But it's kind of an inductive exercise. So I want people to feel it and experience it versus just explain it. So I'm talking to you, Collin, but if you're listening to this, first, I'm going to tell you usually what we're taught. Usually what personal development and self-help teaches is usually what we're taught, and it feels like, is that we have multiple problems, such as I have anxiety, I am a procrastinator, I've got self-doubt, I am insecure. We're taught we have multiple problems, and usually we're taught that these are problems of the mind. It's the ego, it's your mindset, scarcity thinking, cognitive behavioral therapy has the word cognition, mental health. There's a lot of mind words. And so we're taught generally that we have multiple problems of the mind. Do you think that's fair?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm not saying the mind isn't part of it, but it doesn't get great results. Anxiety's on the rise, depression's on the rise, happiness is on the decline, life satisfaction is on the decline. So as engineers, we just said, all right, if this is true, why is it getting kind of crappy results? And we saw that it's not as true as we think. And I'm going to kind of show you again inductively what we saw. So to you, Collin, and if you're listening to this, if you can, close your eyes. If you can't, close your eyes. If you're driving or operating heavy machinery, you don't have to close your eyes. But if you can, sort of close your eyes. And I want you to pick one of the limiting behaviors that we help people with. So either anxiety, procrastination, people-pleasing, self-doubt, and perfectionism. Just maybe pick one if you struggle with one of those. And if you struggle with multiples, maybe just pick one that feels most resonant with you. So pick one of those behaviors, and I want you to see, as best you can, visualize yourself doing that behavior. See yourself anxious, see yourself procrastinating, see yourself being a perfectionist. Just sort of see yourself doing it. And what I want you to notice, if you can, is notice that probably somewhere in the experience of this limiting behavior, probably there is underneath it some fear. There's probably some fear, and the behavior is a symptom of the fear. Meaning, if you're a perfectionist, it's usually that you have a fear of making a mistake. If you're a people pleaser, it's usually a fear that people won't like you, so you put everyone else first. If you're a procrastinator, usually there's a fear of starting or finishing something. Anxiety, just a lot of fear. And procrastinate and self-doubt and low confidence is usually a fear of being your natural, true, authentic self. So if you can, just try to see that perhaps the limiting behavior you have is not a problem, but really a symptom of fear. And then I want you to notice where you feel that fear, where you experience the fear. And usually people feel it in the chest, the heart, the stomach, the throat, the gut. But I want you to listen to those words. Throat, chest, heart, stomach, gut. Are those mind words or are those body words?
Yeah, body words.
They're body words. And that's because what we saw is that the actual origin of limiting fear is not the mind, but the body. So if your eyes are closed, you can open them. If they're already open, you can open them. So we are told that we have multiple problems of the mind, but can you sort of see that maybe we have multiple symptoms of fear, which is actually originating in the body? Do you think there's some truth to that?
Absolutely.
Now, I know with the work that you do that this kind of aligns with what you do. Does that align kind of with what you do on some
Yes.
level? How
Mhm.
so?
Yeah. The one analogy I like to use is if you were working with a band and you've got a bunch of band members and they're all playing different things and they're not cohesive, they're just making a bunch of noise. If you just go in and you just focus on one band member and you just keep trying to get them to shut up and play their part or whatever, like, hey, get yourself in order, no matter how much time you spend with that one band member, and no matter how much they behave or um, learn the music or whatever, if the other band members are just making a bunch of other noise, then it's still going to sound like garbage. And yeah, so like that idea of just focusing on the mind all the time while it's a legitimate thing, it's there. It's a member of the band. Um, if you're ignoring the rest of the band, then you still have a lot of cacophony and noise and yeah, so there's a lot of the band is down here, like you said, the throat, the
Yeah,
heart, the gut, the all of those.
that is a great way to look at it. And yeah, if you ignore other parts of the band, and that's what I mean, it's called mental health. They don't even mention really the body.
Right.
And so one of the
Yeah.
reasons that people aren't getting better results is not because we're broken or there's anything wrong with us. It's that primarily this industry sends people to the symptom level.
Yes.
I worked with a productivity coach and a procrastination coach, and he taught me goal setting, accountability, and motivation. Well,
Mhm.
that's symptom management, but he never addressed the fear underneath, so I could never solve it. But
Yeah.
also all the coaches and the therapists that sent me the mind is part of it, but you can manage things in the mind, but the actual, as I'll explain to your audience, the actual fear is originating in the body. So this is why people aren't getting better results, not because they're broken or there's anything wrong with this or they can't change quickly. It's because the people that you trust to help you primarily are sending you in the literal wrong place, the mind and to the symptom, and you can't ever solve it. So people come to us all the time and saying, I've heard that you're solving procrastination. And this person said, well, how's that even possible? And I said, well, what have you been doing? She said, well, this woman had procrastination issues. And she said, I went to a productivity coach and he worked
Got
on
some smart goals. Yeah.
that some goals and
Yeah.
accountabilities and spreadsheets. And I said, yeah. I said, did that solve anything? And she said, no. And I said, okay. And we helped her address the fear underneath the procrastination. And, surprise, surprise, you go to the actual location of the problem and her productivity tripled, her focus tripled, and, she felt much calmer. So I just want to say to your audience, if you've spent years trying to work on yourself and you haven't solved it, you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. This industry, while well intentioned, is sending you to the wrong place. But if you go to the right place, you get a lot better results. What do you think?
Yeah, makes sense.
Any thoughts? Anything? Yeah. Anything you want
I
to
wanna
share?
keep going. Yeah, what's next?
Well, once we saw that the data showed that fear was coming from the body, that's okay, that's a starting point. But we said, okay, where in the body? And the reason going to the body is so helpful for solutions and better results is because the body is much simpler than the mind. We don't understand the mind. We're just learning about the mind. But the body is kind of cool because a lot of the body's mechanical. Skeleton's mechanical, arteries are mechanical, a tongue is mechanical. It's a lot of mechanics and an engineer's favorite word, and one of your words that you like, on systems. There's systems in the body, and engineers love systems because we know systems can malfunction and systems can be repaired. So we just sort of said, all right, like, is there a system that's probably creating a lot of this limiting fear? And once we asked the right question, we got the right answer. And it's really obvious. It's super simple. So take out the word fear and just swap in the word nervous. What system do you think in the body might be malfunctioning and making people extra nervous. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think, Colin? What do you think?
Endocrine system. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Nervous system.
Nervous system. And why, oh wise sage and Jedi, would you say that the nervous system might be responsible for making people nervous?
Man, I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but it is in the name.
It's got the word. I, ca- I cannot believe that a century of mental health workers have been getting questionable results and calling it mental health. Meanwhile, there's a system in the body called the nervous system, and they're still sending people to the mind. No, the mind is part of it, but there's a system in the body called the nervous system. It seems like a really good place to go look to make people less nervous and afraid. So that's what we did. We realized that the nervous system, basically a healthy nervous system, if it's running correctly, you should feel safe and calm. Your nervous system is your body's threat response system. And if it's healthy, you feel no threats and you feel safe. If you feel safe, you don't have fear and you don't have symptoms of fear like anxiety and procrastination and self-doubt. But if the nervous system is malfunctioning, you feel there's a threat, you feel unsafe, which creates fear, and then the symptoms of fear. So we just said we need a solvable explanation of why the nervous system is malfunctioning. And the beauty of the body is that the body sometimes is complicated, but is often quite simple. And there's sort of a universal law of the body, which is that we're given a body for free, which is a pretty sweet deal. Like to buy a body online, not a dead body, like your own body, it would be very expensive to design and do an R&D on a body. And God gives us a body for free. Which is cool. We get eyeballs, you get a tongue, you get hearing, you get a soul and spirit, like all for free, no charge. There's one condition to getting a body for free. What do you think the condition is?
Conditions for getting a body. I don't know, man. Existing? Where
It's
are
a
you
pretty
going with it?
abstract answer. The answer I'm looking for is that you got to take care of it.
I don't think you have to, but it would be probably probably smart to.
Fair enough. Meaning there's consequences if you don't.
There sure are, yeah.
We are given the most incredible things in life are free. A planet, little, love, relationships, free. A dog, cats, kittens, baby smiles. So many things are free, but you got to take care of them, including the systems in the body. And so we said, well, wait a minute. They don't really teach how to take care of the nervous system. And what we saw with the nervous system is that basically the nervous system, like any system in the body, has basic nutrition that it needs. Not meal nutrition or vitamin nutrition, emotional nutrition, because it's an emotional system. And the nervous system has basic nutrients that it needs to function properly. Just like we need enough water, we need to get enough certain nutrition with meals. The systems in the body need proper nutrition. Your bones need calcium. So we basically saw that there are 28 total, but 7 categories of nutrients, emotional nutrients, that the nervous system needs. The problem is we're taught to give our body certain types of nutrition, sleep, water, diet, certain vitamins, but we were never taught to give our nervous system emotional nutrients. We're just not taught it. So if we're not taught how to give emotional nutrients to the nervous system, eventually what's going to happen to that system?
Probably gonna malfunction.
It's going to malfunction. And when the nervous system malfunctions, basically, there's a fear switch in us all. And in a healthy nervous system, the fear switch turns on and off at appropriate times and appropriate levels. But when your nervous system malfunctions from poor nutrition, the fear switch is stuck in the on position. And you feel levels of fear when you shouldn't. And then that gives rise to the symptoms of fear: anxiety, procrastination, self-doubt, people-pleasing, and perfectionism.
Like
So,
the check engine light that you can't turn off.
yes, exactly. So you do not have a problem. You do not suffer from procrastination. Your body is giving, that is an excellent metaphor, Colin. a real-time alarm system basically telling you that your inner engine is not being properly maintained. And so the big reframe for us was that, procrastination is not a psychological issue. It's not a mind issue, it's a body issue, specifically nervous system nutrition issue. Your people pleasing, your anxiety is not a spiritual issue. It's a little bit more simple than that. It is a physiological issue, specifically a nutrient issue, because the fear switch is stuck in the on position. What do you think about what I'm sharing? What are your thoughts?
Yep. I'm tracking with you. Let's keep going.
Okay. So people ask, what do you think the most common question people ask when I say, hey, your nervous system is malfunctioning because it's not getting proper nutrition? What do you think they often ask?
What are the nutrients?
Yes. So I'm going to share one of the nutrients so that you understand kind of the context of what I'm talking about here. But I have a couple disclaimers, which I'll give afterwards. But first of all, we'll do a little inductive exercise so you can just feel what I mean when I say emotional nutrients. Okay, so we'll do a little role play here to you, Collin, and to anybody listening. Okay, let's say we're friends and you all of a sudden feel some fear and stress or fear. So just turn to me and say, Daniel, I'm feeling afraid.
Daniel, I am feeling afraid.
Yeah, well, I don't care, honestly. And how you feel is seriously inconvenient and getting in the way of my happiness. And so you're on your own. And honestly, I kind of judge the way you feel and just get it away from me. Okay, if I do that, does that make you more afraid or less afraid?
More afraid.
More afraid. And the reason is because I didn't give you one of the key emotional nutrients, which is to listen. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the key emotional nutrients that the nervous system needs is listening. Now, I want to be clear because people know about listening. This is not like a new thing. Some people are giving themselves some nutrients, but it's the nutrients you're not giving yourself that can be creating the malfunction. And also, it's not so much you can know that listening is important, but usually we as humans, we're not great at listening to ourselves. We are fragmented, we are distracted, we are disconnected from our bodies. And so even if you know listening matters, most people aren't great at listening to themselves consistently. And so that nutrient goes missing. And along with the other nutrients that goes missing, eventually your nervous system malfunctions and the fear switch gets stuck in the on position and you get stuck with all these symptoms.
Yep,
Is this making sense?
Yes.
Now, I know you teach things that I guess are similar or in aligned, but what's your perspective on this?
Similar to what with the check engine light, I like that analogy as well. Just um, your body, your nervous system, it sends you a lot of warnings, notifications. Maybe it would be a simpler term because they're not always warnings. Sometimes it's just like, hey, this is a thing that's going on. Notification. And those notifications can get really distracting. And so sometimes people don't like to have all those notifications. So they try to turn them off. They just press the buttons to turn them off. They put tape over the light. And they do all these things to avoid seeing the notifications. But some of those notifications are telling you about something that's going wrong or something that's important that needs attention. And if you don't give attention, something's going to blow up at some point. And, so just, clicking ignore all over and over and over and over and over again gets harder to do because they start coming in faster and faster, but it also leads to the problems of deferred maintenance like you're talking about.
Man, the way you articulate that is I love that. We turn off notifications. We totally turn off notifications.
Mhm.
And, that's a good short-term strategy, but, it's trying to tell you something. And if you ignore that check engine light, you can do it for a while, but your engine's going to blow. And so
Yeah.
absolutely.
One other
Now,
thing, my buddy recently told me, like, yeah, and I don't think he came up with this, but it's like, first the universe sends you a feather, and then it throws a brick at you, and then if you ignore that, you get hit by a bus. It's like, same sort of thing. Yeah.
yep. Now, people know this. They know that our body sends us signals, and people know that we don't always listen. So I want to be clear that you can't just listen away your procrastination or just simply listen away your anxiety. It was an example of a nutrient. But with what we teach, it's not the concept. Again, it's the engineered applied application to take the concepts and turn it into a solution. So if you're sitting there saying, "Oh, I already heard about listening from my therapist," like, great, but that didn't solve anything. It's taking these concepts that are true and turning it into a simple solution. And what we teach people is how to quickly and systematically give the nervous system the nutrients it needs. And when you do that, the fear switch basically turns off. When the fear switch turns off, the symptoms of fear basically vanish and don't come back. I have been basically calm and tranquil with a quiet mind. I used to be horribly insecure, and now I could honestly give two shits with like I'm just free of this stuff. Not because I'm enlightened, not because I'm smarter, because I just basically, apply the tools that we do that work really well, which is that the fear is what goes down. And I think people have been so afraid for so long. They may not call it fear, but it's good for people to understand what life would be like without that slight to high level of fear and discomfort in their body. So, again, close your eyes if you can or not. And I just want you to see as best you can. Just imagine a life where you had significantly less or very little of this fear from the malfunctioning nervous system, and you could just wake up calm, grounded, and confident. And that was your default. And just sort of see that if that fear from the malfunctioning nervous system was sort of gone, just sort of can you see that probably the anxiety would go away if you weren't afraid to start and finish things, you wouldn't procrastinate. If you weren't afraid of making a mistake, you wouldn't be a perfectionist. If you didn't care so much what people thought of you, you might not people please so much. And if you didn't have the fear of being yourself, you'd probably have more confidence in yourself. Can you kind of see that?
Yes, I see that.
Yeah.
Daniel, we have about 7 minutes left. I know that you'd love to share more on how people can learn more. With the next 2 minutes, would you be willing to either demonstrate or guide me through just that one listening process? Maybe like a micro version or like steps 1 through 3 or something like that?
Uh, Not really, and it wouldn't. I'm about results, and I want to give people a result. But the technique that I want to give to your audience, it's called the struggle switch turn off technique, and I'll give them a link to get that, or it's in the show notes. And there you'll get a deep dive explanation of exactly what you're asking, like how do we do this? And we're going to guide them through how you give your nervous system another nutrient other than listening. And when you do that, you will feel that fear switch, the struggle switch, basically start to turn off, and you will feel a change in your body, but also a bit in your behavior. So I can't do it now, but I really want to honor this content, and I want to, give this free, teach your audience that free technique. You did the technique yourself, and yeah, did you feel anything different? Did you experience something positive?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's I mean, you talked about this in the other content, but the way to measure a before and after and make that something people can identify. Yes, I experienced that. So for those of you, if there are those listening who check out what Daniel's sharing for free, uh, that's part of it too. The ability to check a before and after and have something that's measurable. And I think that by itself is incredibly valuable.
Thank you. Yeah, we love our measurement. Whenever we work with people, we track everything's measurable. So when you do the technique that you're going to measure a behavior before from 1 to 10, and then you're going to apply the technique. It takes about 5 minutes, and then that you'll remeasure the behavior, and you'll notice it already changing. And that's the result that we want to give people. I shared some perspectives that has allowed myself and the thousands of people we've helped to live better lives quickly, to be superhuman quickly. But again, your audience is going to be skeptical. They're going to have doubt. They've heard a ton of stuff before that didn't work that well. So I always encourage people, don't just trust me. Trust your own experience. Get this technique, link in the show notes. And when you feel it, that's when you'll know. But then the question is like, why would you? Why would you go get the technique. And it would be, if anything I've shared so far has piqued your curiosity. This idea that we don't have problems, more symptoms of fear, and that fear might not be originating in the mind, but actually might be originating in the body, and specifically the nervous system. And that the reason that the nervous system is malfunctioning is because it didn't get proper emotional nutrition, so it's malfunctioning, creating all this fear and symptoms of fear. And that it makes sense that if you got the nervous system the nutrients it needs, the fear switch would turn off and the symptoms would go away. If that makes sense to you, to the point where you're like, that could work, but you're sort of curious to see if it would actually work for you, then yeah, I want you to get this technique. It's called the struggle switch turn off technique. Takes about 5 minutes, and you can get that at danielpackard.com/superhuman. So danielpackard.com/superhuman. Will we put the link in the show notes?
Yeah, we will. And for those who might be driving, can you repeat that one more time in case they turned their brain off 5 seconds ago?
Yeah.
Turn it back on, folks.
So my name's Daniel Packard. This show is Superhuman Academy. So it's danielpackard.com/superhuman. And you'll get a link to get the free technique and see for yourself. And when you try the technique, I think you will see for yourself that you do not have to spend a lifetime struggling, that you can be superhuman much faster. And you will also experience the power of years of inner engineering.
Well, thank you, Daniel. I think that brings us to the end here. Unless there's anything else that you would like to ask or share with me, then this seems like a perfect place to wrap.
I am complete.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate this time. And again, for those who might listen to this, for whatever it's worth, if you happen to trust me with anything, I definitely support and vouch for the things that Daniel does. I've gotten to go through a lot, or at least preview and look through a lot of his content, experience some of it. He and I have talked, and I would recommend you check it out. If you're on the fence, go for it. Go see what it's like. It's a free video and it's powerful. So might as well test. What's the worst that could happen? What's the best that could happen? I like that question. And with that, I'll sign off. Thank you.
The Superhuman Academy podcast is hosted by Collin Jewett and designed and edited by Army Cinco, with original music by Joshua Schunig and voiceovers by Corey Page Schunig. That's me. You can find past episodes and resources, as well as access to the ever-growing Superhuman Academy community at superhumanacademy.com. If you like the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice.